everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I'm your host, Mary Catherine Ham. I am here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. We are back in the same room. We're holding it down. There's a lot of news, and I will say it's some dark news today because we're going to talk about Israeli hostages. We're going to talk about Gold Star families, so it's a little bit heavy today. So before we get to the heavy stuff, let's chat about what's going on. We are coming off Labor Day weekend. How was it?
Hello, Mary Catherine. Your slurring is the way I said it on Saturday. I know you went to a lovely baby shower on a Sunday. My wife saw you. Not my wife's baby shower. Okay, let's just be clear about that. Woo.
Nor mine.
Nor Mary again. No. So a good friend of ours. And the dad-to-be, we took him out on the Saturday.
Nice.
For just a day lunch that started at 12:30 and somehow ended for me at 7.
Oh, shocking.
Yeah. It was a really long lunch. Old Town, Alexandria is lovely. So many places to check out. I haven't done that.
Where was your main
in a long
place?
Time. Okay, well, we
where'd you
started off at a lovely restaurant, Ada's on the River.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I like that place.
Loves that place. And so we started there, and then we just started wandering around King Street, and at some point said I have to go back. And then the great thing is my son was brought us there as like a designated driver.
Oh, we love that.
Yeah, this is the great thing about having your son, also acknowledging that you have a problem to your son. This is kind of an indirect way of saying it. In case you're wondering, this is it.
I do enjoy that my kids can at least bring me a beer from the fridge now.
Yes.
That is the thing that they've been trained to do for quite some time.
And then soon mix drinks and things like that.
I think they could do cocktails now. I think I could get the second one on that at least.
No, it's never too young to start. I remember when my father asked me to get him a beer once, and the first time. And I don't know how old I was, maybe 12, 13, and I really didn't know. And I took the beer. I was very excited, opened it up. It was like a Heineken. Poured it into a tall glass with ice in a straw. As if this was some sort of a college game.
I like that you were so extra about it.
I wanted to make it really special and memorable. That was the last time I ever did anything like that, obviously. But no, it was lovely. And then I ended up walking home from our friend's house, which was about 2.5 miles away, and had to stop into a Mexican restaurant to use the facilities, and then went to a McDonald's. That I really need the double quarter pounder with cheese and the fillet of fish. No, but it's just, you're in that moment.
Yeah.
And then made it back home safely.
Well, I'm so glad you made it safely.
That's it, Mary Catherine.
People were looking at you like, God, the homeless problem is really out of control.
No, I think, I was worried at night, and people just seemed to go, like, it was like the parting of the Red Sea. People just went away from me wherever I walked.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, they smelled me before they saw me. How are you? How was your weekend?
We had a good weekend. I went to said baby shower. It was lovely. Mm-hmm. I did win a prize. There was a game where you had to guess the most popular names from the 80s, 2010s, and over the last 100 years.
Oh, you're a pro at this.
But I gotta say,
you've had children in every decade, really.
I gotta say, This was such a lovely shower that second place was not the first loser, and I got a prize. But I actually was only second by 1 point.
Oh.
To Kristen Soltis Anderson, which is pretty
impressive.
On brand. Like if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose by a point to Kristen Soltis Anderson.
By somebody who studies data.
She knows
so
the
she
things.
Would know
yes.
these things.
So, but we were in stiff competition.
What's the popular name these days?
I'm trying to remember. For boys, it's Liam and Noah are huge.
Of course.
For girls, Emma and Olivia have been around for the last 20 years. And overall, the one that surprised me over the last 100 years, Jennifer was so popular during the 80s that it has become one of the top 100 of the 100 years and has not been knocked out of the top 3.
Wow.
According to the data at this.
Because I don't think we know any parents who are naming their kids Jennifer.
You don't know any young Jennifers.
No.
My brother is an Owen, but he's an Owen from the 80s. And now there are 17,000 Owens in every preschool class, but not in his age cohort.
He was ahead of the curve.
He was way ahead of the curve.
How about Victorino? Did you do a search for that?
That was not on my list.
I think there were 2, me and my dad.
I didn't
Shane Victorino.
I did not put that on my my list of
smart
possible.
move. That's why you won.
So I went to that shower. That was fun. And then on Monday, the weather was spectacular.
It was spectacular. Yes, it was.
So we went out to a actually, my kids handle my social life now. I send them out in the neighborhood because I'm not like disciplined enough to follow up with people and make friends in the neighborhood, but they go out and make friends in the neighborhood. And then those kids' parents we end up hanging out with, which is lovely.
Yes.
And they're great folks. And I like our neighborhood. It has a lot of normal folks in it, a lot of law enforcement, a lot of military. Nice. And they let their kids sort of free range a bit in the neighborhood. They're outside a lot. And there was a bit of a block party on one of the neighborhoods. People just got together. Somebody made ribs and chicken, and there were drinks out. So we hung out a bit there.
Did you crash the block party?
I mean, I was sort of technically invited because my children ended up there, right?
There you go.
And I brought something.
Okay.
I brought some drinks.
Okay, well, that's all that matters.
I brought some drinks.
Bring something.
We hung out for a bit, and then Steve and I went on a hike because it was so nice out. And I was like, I feel like going on a hike. And I had taken the kids on hikes all last week, which is an ordeal because half of them don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
2 of them do. 2 of them are meh about it.
Yeah. Trudging.
Unfortunately, the ones that do like hiking are 2 and 1. So the pace is not my normal. So I went with Steve, and as is our wont, we sort of accidentally covered 5.5 miles.
Wow.
Back in time for dinner. I was like, you know what? Let's just keep going. And then we ended up on the road. We were at Prince William National Forest. And then we ended up on the scenic drive, and I was like, well, let's jog a little bit back to the trail. So we ran for a mile or 2, and then we got back on the trail and eventually made it to our car.
I thought I had a long trek at 2.5 miles.
Well, we were not drunk, so
I was going to say it felt fast. But good for you. And it was a gorgeous day.
It was a beautiful day. So I enjoyed that. To my knowledge, I do not have ticks, but it is still summer, so watch out there.
That's my concern.
Be careful out there. Okay. Let's talk about the news, which is pretty heavy this week. We did not talk about the Kamala Harris and Tim Walz interview, which we're going to do after we cover Israel first, because it does seem to be the top news, in fairness. 6 Israeli hostages, one of them a dual American-Israeli citizen, whose name you guys will know, Harris-Walz Poland. Their bodies were found in a tunnel in Gaza, and very sad in and of itself, but even more sad and tragic that it seems were murdered very shortly before they would have encountered some IDF forces at some point. So they had been alive for a long time. The hostages' names are Eden Yerushalmi, age 24, Ori Danino, 25, Alex Lobanov, 32, Carmel Gat, 40, Almog Sarusi, 27, and Hirsch Goldberg Poland, a U.S. citizen, 23. Hirsch, because his mother, Rachel Goldberg Poland, and his father, John, have been around the globe advocating for the hostages who are still in Gaza. And there's something to me so painful and poignant, not just about having to go through this, but about having to run a PR campaign on top of it. Because people do forget about hostages. Because if you're not hearing it, if it's not in your face all the time, people will move on with their lives. Right. And unfortunately, that often means that it falls to families to make as much noise as possible about their loved ones. To me, this is shattering news. A friend of mine said it feels like October 8th again, someone who has been following this very closely. There was hope, of course, that these folks were alive. They had seen proof of life recently. Hamas, monsters that they are, apparently made them make videos shortly before they were murdered. It's pretty clear they were executed. Yeah. And it's unclear exactly what happened. I don't think there was a planned rescue attempt here. It was just that
they were close.
The IDF is closing in on these tunnels in Rafah where these folks are being kept. And I would just note also to the international community, these 6 hostages were alive until last week. They have been underground, likely in these tunnels with Hamas for almost a year. they were not visited by the Red Cross once. I guess you just don't do that for Israeli hostages.
Did they not want to reveal where their locations were? Is that why?
It's just like standard practice for the Red Cross to be
For
allowed to
hostages.
examine
Yeah.
hostages in these situations. But, when it's Israel, all the rules go by the wayside for Hamas. And anyway, very, very sad news. I have a couple clips, and again, this is very heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to play Rachel Goldberg, Poland speaking at her son's funeral, where thousands gathered because, again, he was extremely well known. I've seen already that he's having children named after him, which is a very sweet tribute, but certainly no replacement for losing him. But here's his mother, and it's heartbreaking.
Okay, sweet boy, go now on your journey. I hope it's as good as the trips you dreamed about, because finally, my sweet boy, finally, you're free. I will love you and I will miss you every single day for the rest of my life. But you're right here. I know you're right here. I just have to teach myself how to feel you in a different way. And Hirsch, there's one last thing I need you to do for us. Now I need you to help us stay strong. And I need you to help us survive.
Ooh, she's wearing, I think it's a Jewish funeral custom. She's wearing a torn garment.
Yeah.
And she has the number 332 on her shirt, which is the number of days that hostages have been in Gaza. A lot of people wear that on their shirts in Israel, in addition to the yellow ribbon for those hostages. Just incredibly heartbreaking. There are huge crowds at these funerals with many Israelis. Just yet another hit. As I said, it feels like October 8th to many, again, to find that these guys are not coming home.
What's equally upsetting is the reaction to it, right? So you had a big turnout for this event, obviously. And now there's apparently in Israel close to a national strike, because everyone's very upset at Bibi Netanyahu for this in Israel. So, I mean, the country is divided and they want him to make a deal, but it is unclear to me what that means because, as you know, in Israel, it is incumbent on the Israeli government to always bring back anyone who has been taken hostage, but at a terrible price. And this happened in the past with an IDF soldier, Shalit was his name, and he was finally returned after Israel gave up over 1,000 pro-Hamas types, including Yahya Sinwar, which then basically encourages them
really
to
comes
do
back
more.
To
But I understand the anguish there. I don't understand the anguish in this country, namely the rally that happened just the other day in New York City, basically celebrating that Hamas had done this thing. And in some of the first person, sort of the videos from on the ground, somebody approaches a car that has various flags on it and asking, them, that, these people, including an American, were shot point blank, killed in cold blood by the people you're celebrating. How do you feel? And the person driving the car just says two things. One, they shouldn't have been there. And two, Israel did it.
Oh my God!
So I mean, you cannot argue or reason with these people. That's the first thing. And the second thing is when you putting the blame on Israel, and Joe Biden did this when they said, "Is he doing enough?" at the press conference, and he just gives a one-word answer. Joe does, and he just says, "No." Honestly, it's I think about in the Second World War. When concentration camps were on the verge of being liberated in a number of places, rather than having them being found alive, they would try to kill as many as possible.
Or in the South Pacific as well, in the Japanese theater.
Absolutely. That's right. In Palawan in the Philippines, there was an American prisoner of war camp, and they were all brutally murdered there before the Americans arrived. So this is happening, and nobody, I feel like when that happened, nobody got angry at the U.S. for not making a deal to get those prisoners of war back.
So Israel is in an impossible position, as they have been sort of from the beginning. And actually, they are prosecuting the war quite handily under impossible conditions, right? At this point, not that many civilians at all in Gaza are being hurt because they have evacuated folks, they have fed folks.
It's a lingering talking point.
Right. They have they have worked their way surgically into Rafah, where, by the way, the whole international community and Biden and everyone told them not to go. Harris told them not to go to find... By the way, Netanyahu's the problem, but Biden's like, don't go to the place where the live hostages are kept.
Well, you see what happened?
Where you could possibly rescue
them. He might
them.
as well say, you see what happened? Because you went in, that's why they're dead,
but
because it's his fault.
So I want to have plenty of empathy, obviously, for the families of those who are still in Gaza. 101 hostages. We don't know how many are alive. No. And empathy for their calls to do whatever it takes to get these people home, right? But how do you do deals with the group that just executed these folks because the IDF is closing in, who makes them do hostage videos, again, against international law? International community, are you listening? I'm sure they're not. No. By the way, this is just less than a week after Hirsch's parents addressed the DNC. Yeah,
that's right. The Democratic Convention.
That is nominating the current vice president of the United States. That the folks in Hamas feel secure executing the son of the parents who just spoke at, I believe, were they at both conventions? Hirsch's parents?
I only remember
they definitely were at the DNC.
The DNC.
What does that say that Hamas thinks about us?
They're not scared.
They're not at all.
They killed an American hostage. And what is our response to it? One is pushing, Netanyahu and the Israeli coalition government to work harder. Tony Blinken saying the same thing, essentially.
Yeah, you just got to work harder
on the one hand,
to convince these people.
They don't just condemn, Mary Catherine. They strongly condemn this heinous act by these savage murderers and terrorists. And by the way, you need to come to agreement with those savage murderers and terrorists and work out a hostage negotiation, and a hostage deal, not returning of the hostages. Again, this is also a Kamala Harris thing, which is that she emphasizes a hostage deal, a ceasefire. These people are terrible. Why can't you work with these people? And I'm like, you spend all this time dealing with Israel. You might as well go to the other side and talk to them directly now. Pretend, because that's what you're telling them to do.
The Atlantic has a piece from Franklin Foer that has this paragraph in it. As the war grinds toward its end, Hirsch's murder will haunt Israeli dreams and Netanyahu's legacy. In a moral sense, culpability rests entirely with Hirsch's depraved executioners. This is a to be sure sentence if we've ever heard one. But Netanyahu behaved grotesquely when presented with opportunities to secure his release. Hamas, by the way, keeps turning down deals.
Yeah, they're the ones. I mean, there have been deals on the table, but what they want is things like immunity from prosecution for Yahya Sinwar.
Right.
The mastermind. It would
or
be
just
like making a deal with
let us keep all our
Al-Qaeda
weapons, keep feeding us,
that's right.
all the things.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
And I will say that Kamala Harris's statements about Hamas keep getting more morally clear about Hamas's character, and this one I think was more strong than her past ones.
Yeah, the language,
But as you point out, the request is always like, yeah, these people are monsters with whom you can't possibly deal. Now go back to dealing with them.
Yeah.
Right?
Can't you make a deal
that's
with
the
them
request.
And release hundreds of thousands, whatever.
Tim Walz also released a statement, but it was only after he was asked about this at the Minnesota State Fair.
He was in rare form.
And let me play that clip for you guys.
What's your reaction to the 6 hostages being found dead in Gaza?
All right. Thanks, everybody.
He's eating an ice cream cone. It's a nice throwback to the Biden way of dealing with tough questions. Eating an ice cream cone at the fair. He's wearing a T-shirt and a ball cap. He's asked, what is your reaction to the killing of these hostages, one of which is an American citizen?
Mm-hmm.
And now, I think some of the excuse makers were like, maybe he didn't hear the question.
Oh.
He's looking at the person asking the question.
Clearly.
He's clearly concentrating on the question. And when they figure out what question it is, his minder walks through and then he pretends he didn't hear the question and he waves and walks away.
Mary Catherine, let me ask you this question. If the reporter said, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Would you have heard that question? I think he might have, Vic.
Here's what I
He might
think.
have.
Here's what I think. A couple things. One is they're clearly, obviously coordinating with the Harris campaign about messaging, right? And Harris is obviously very mindful that she does not want to be big-footed by her running mate, right? This is a big deal for her. And he has a very much stronger vocal presence than she does in some ways. And then I think maybe what they said to him, going through these briefings and meetings was probably, when it comes to anything policy related, certainly about something like this, do not comment, because he might say something that is not in sync, right?
I think I can't remember who reported it, but somebody really actually reported that they are hesitant to have him in front of a camera because he doesn't know what her policies are.
Right. This could very well be an example of that. You want to talk about your pork chop on a stick and do a video, which he did. That's fine. But
so
this,
just, like, in case you're feeling like you're behind the news because you can't figure out what Kamala Harris's positions are, neither can her running mate. So just don't beat yourself up about it.
He could have easily said, we condemn it, and take a chance that she would condemn it too. But no, he just was like, thanks. And
I gotta move on. Again, I think this is a pattern from the Biden-Harris administration into the Harris-Walz campaign of ignoring the deaths of Americans that they find inconvenient to them politically. And I think it's callous, and I think it's gross, and it's worse because they get credit for being empathetic somehow.
No.
That's the part that really gets me.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk more about the deaths of Americans in Afghanistan 3 years ago, and the whole news cycle that has taken up over the past couple of days. But before we do that, we should talk about this interview.
Oh, sure.
And by the way, just to reiterate that our prayers are continually with the people of Israel. It's very tough. I know that, like, now protesters are in the streets there. There are strikes that are shutting down schools, which I find particularly heartbreaking because, much like with COVID, these kids went through COVID and then the war, and their parents are shipped off for for periods of time to Gaza to fight the war. And now this source of stability is taken from them. I'm not sure what it does to convince Netanyahu to do what, make Hamas, even, like, you don't have to like Netanyahu to accept that Hamas is not accepting deals here. So anyway, my thoughts are with everybody. It's just chaotic and heartbreaking. Let's talk about this interview, which we did not get to talk about last week because it happened happened after we recorded. What's your overall impression of finally Kamala Harris sat down with Dana Bash of CNN to give an interview?
Well, Mary Catherine, we spoke about this on the day of, and I believe I said that I'm sure she will do fine because our expectations are now so low, right? I mean, she just has to get through it, and it's going to be a generally, I'm going to say, friendly interview with her male chaperone, her running mate. Tim Walz is going to be right next to her if anything goes wrong, and it's pre-taped, right? So they can edit, even though they insist it's not edited. Well, I mean, they're putting in clips. That counts as being edited. I understand that the interview is actually longer than the 18 or 28 minutes that we get. I don't know. When I've heard 18 minutes, I don't know if that means that not because of the commercials. Nevertheless, I did sit through there beginning to wonder, how long is this going to be for? I didn't realize it was basically a 30 minutes. It's like a sitcom length.
Right. It was stretched to make 50 minutes of TV.
That's right. And I think for that short amount of time in a pre-taped interview on a friendly network, I think she did not do great.
Yeah.
Or her running mate, who had little to say, and what he did speak, also not great. And
I agree.
Now, they were given some softballs. He's talking about, I think, his family, his kids, his son, Tim Walz was, and Kamala Harris talking about the grandniece. the where were
you when you got the
question.
call?
Yes. Okay. So that's how I feel. I think she didn't do well. She looked down a lot, and I couldn't tell if she had notes on the table or if that was just a nervous tick because she's trying to prevent the cackle, the security blanket cackle.
I do think that might be something she's working on. Yes.
That might be it. But from the get-go, that first question, what are you going to do on day one? A talking point came out of her mouth, which was, relief for the middle class.
Well, here's the thing.
Yes.
It wasn't even a talking point.
It was swimming around in her head, though, and somehow that's what came out. And I'm gonna. I yield to you, Mary Catherine, because I also have complaints about the questioner.
We can continue. Yeah, we can continue.
Yeah. What did you think?
Look, there's no other interview to talk about, so we're going to have to talk about this one for a while.
This is going to be. I think this is going to be it.
In a normal campaign, she would have done 2 or 3 since then, but not in this campaign. So let's play the day one question and answer.
If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism.
She was nervous. She was nervous.
This is so bad. Do you know why this is so bad? Because if there is any question on God's green earth that I can guarantee you will be asked if you are running for president and sitting down with a reporter of any stripe.
Yeah.
It is, what will you do on day one? Yeah. Now, you have a chance at that point to lay out a vision.
That's it.
To dance a little bit, to bring some gravitas or some emotion to the situation where you say, well, I'm going to take in this moment, this monumental moment, the idea of following the footsteps of so-and-so and so-and-so. Yeah. Let me tell you why I came to be here and why it means so much for me to be here. Mm-hmm. And here are the 3 things that I will do to build the middle class using the powers I have.
On day one.
It's not hard to formulate that answer.
Right.
She's had 6 weeks to formulate that answer. She doesn't have an answer because she's bad at this. I don't think she has a plan.
She doesn't have really.
And she's not interested in learning anything to say on camera because she's not good at that either.
I'll tell you what it was one of the challenges in that very tricky question, which is
very tricky.
I think the gut instinct for any politician is to say, day one, I'm reversing these executive decisions, executive orders, except for, oh, wait a minute.
Right.
He's not president. It's my current boss, Joe Biden. So she cannot say the executive order thing is the obvious answer for X, Y, or Z. Instating this, reinstating this, or reversing this. You're either reinstating or reversing executive orders, which is what Trump did to Obama,
right,
and which was what Biden did to Trump regarding the border, obviously with disastrous effects. She couldn't say that.
Right, because she's not going to reverse her own executive who she's running from and saying that everything's terrible under him, but she's not going to reverse him.
And that was just from the get-go. That's just the first question.
Well, and there are other ways to deal with this. As I said, you can talk about a piece of legislation that you will be introducing on day one as a concept, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be I'm going to be on the Senate floor on day one or this piece of legislation will exist. You can just talk about it on day one.
Yeah.
You can lay out a vision on day one, and then you can say, here's 3 areas in 3 different agencies where I think I can make some changes on day one that will make things easier for people.
There's also there's 2 quick tricks you might try to do if you're trying to stall for more time, even if it's just a few seconds. One is, of course, I'm sorry, can you say that again, right? That would be the first one, but it's too obvious because it's very clear. You shouldn't do that one. Right, okay. And then the second one, I remember Dan Quayle being asked, former Vice President Dan Quayle, way back in the day from 89 to 93, asked about what he would do if something happened to George H.W. Bush and he becomes president of the United States because he was just a congressman from Indiana, what would he do? And he paused, and I believe the first thing he said is, the first thing I do is say a prayer. That's a good answer. Good answer. Buy yourself some time. Who's going to begrudge you saying a prayer?
That's what I'd do if I
Right.
suddenly became
Right.
president.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it was not great. And then from the questioner point of view, the things that I found frustrating about Dana Bash in this instance, there are other things, but in this particular instance was she asked some good questions, but failed to follow up.
Yes.
So there was a lot of, okay, fine, you reversed yourself on fracking. Why and how? And she kind of got into it, but then it was just, let's move on to the next thing. But really, it's a question of how.
Yeah.
And why? What made you? And that one was the closest Dana, I think, got to sort of this follow-up of, why did you come to this? And she was like, let me be very clear here. I changed my position back in 2020, which she didn't really.
She didn't.
No,
Yeah.
she said Joe Biden.
She said
is
Joe
not for
Biden
fracking.
won't do it. Right.
That's it.
It reminded me, the day one question reminded me of the famous Roger Mudd question of Ted Kennedy.
Oh,
when he
yeah.
was running for president and said, why do you want to be president? And the guy's like, and the answer was, I'm sort of a narcissistic Kennedy, so I should probably be president.
It's
right?
it's my time.
That was
It's
the
turn. It's my
answer.
turn.
And if you are too self-involved and too unskilled to dance
Yeah.
around your self-involvement, Bill Clinton's extremely self-involved but very skilled.
Oh, very.
Trump, extremely self-involved but sort of funny,
Mhm.
right? They have skills
Yes.
that Kamala Harris does not have. But she doesn't have the benefit of being a Kennedy. Like, you got to
No.
do the homework, man.
Yeah.
So it reminded me of that because she was just so very flat-footed. And again,
I have this
the-
vision that I want to deploy.
right, this expectation is so low for her that I don't think this is going to be a huge problem. But I do think people who watched this interview, if they didn't catch the lies, if they didn't catch the backtracking, it certainly didn't come across as commanding.
No.
It did not come across as informed. It didn't come across as somebody who, I thought the staging was odd. She looked small because she
Yes,
was
it's
furthest.
a table. Yeah.
She was furthest from the camera. They were in this weirdly dimly lit, looked like a hotel breakfast lounge.
Right. It
Like
kind of did.
breakfast buffet
I was going to say
lounge.
normally they do some sort of a kitchen setup. This is
Right.
a kitchen interview.
Yeah, there was it
in
wasn't
somebody's
warm.
very fancy kitchen.
Yeah, it was not warm.
No.
It was very sort of cold
Yeah,
looking.
yeah.
She seemed strangely hunched over, and I
Yeah.
know something about this because when I'm on TV and I'm hunched over, I will get a text from my husband in real time telling me to sit up straight. But it is an important part of presenting yourself on camera
It is.
to do that.
No,
and
you noticed that.
she oddly was not, which then Walz was closer to the camera and he's larger than her, so it made him look like he was
Right.
the focal point. The whole thing was odd. And he had no good answers on the
Oh.
most obvious questions for him, which were about his lies.
Yeah.
And she didn't hammer him, but she did ask the questions.
Yep.
And he did not have good answers. In fact, let's play the grammar answer.
Mhm.
The idea that you said that you were in war.
Yeah.
Did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar is not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog.
Like, nah, dude. That's not a grammar problem.
Number one, the grammar thing, which is the worst thing. And he said, "Oh, my wife says that I'm not really great with my grammar." When I said, grammar meaning when I, weapons of war, I carried this weapon to war and I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's a grammar issue, apparently, because the the words were completely different than what I wanted to use. That's the first thing. It's not a question of tense, right? But the second thing is, what's the first thing that he says? There was a school shooting. That's
Yeah.
what he said.
So
There was a school shooting.
That's the reason that
So,
he can.
And I think in his mind, what he maybe wanted to, could have said is, and I just got so worked up over, I was so angry about the use of these assault rifle style weapons.
Right.
And I've used them when I was in the National Guard overseas
Right.
on the other continent. I'll let you figure out where. But the fact is, I just got so worked up about it, and then I just, got a little bit carried away, like the Germans bombing Pearl
That would
Harbor
have been
and
a better
Animal
answer.
House,
What you just said would have been a much better answer. Good job, Vic.
Thank you. I'm ready for the call to be the vice
Vic
president.
walked home drunk from his friend's house on Saturday night, which is another tip that Tim Walz could take instead of driving drunk and getting arrested for that.
Do it.
And he just formulated a better answer than Tim Walz did.
Thank you. Mary Catherine, how did you like the question, where were you when Joe Biden gave you the call?
I mean, here's the thing. Those kinds of questions are perfectly fine. They can even reveal things, right? And we want to know the history of this moment. It is a historic moment. Do I believe she was cooking bacon for her grandniece? I don't know. I often cook bacon as well. So I could get an important phone call while I was cooking bacon.
Was the vice president really cooking the bacon? That's the first question. That's right. I'm going to call her out on this. Look, I don't know. I cook bacon in my house, but it's fine. I would have given her the pass. There's no way to check. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. It's her saying that the kid said, "Can I have more bacon, Auntie?" What is it? Yes, that's exactly what. Can I have more? Can I have some more, please? It's like Oliver, and sure you can. And she was also doing scullery. She was on her hands and knees. She was scrubbing the floor. Wait, I got this in the oven too, and I have to do this and that. She was doing everything at the vice president's
house smells
mansion.
of chocolate chip cookies.
Yes. Yeah.
So
please,
I think
spare me.
I think those questions can be fine, and they can even be sort of interesting. But they're not fine if you haven't had any questions for more than a month after having come into this very important race for president. So I think you don't do the softballs when this person has not sat down at all. And someone did do a comparison of the questions that Bash posed to J.D. Vance versus the questions she posed to these two. And it is real easy to see the difference in the combative nature and just the driving follow-ups, which are fair, by the way. Like, not all of them are unfair.
Yeah.
And when you're running for president or you're the vice presidential candidate, you should be ready to answer those questions. You should anticipate, as J.D. Vance clearly did, what those questions would be. These guys, I do think it concerns me that if you want to be president and vice president of the United States, you're not able to anticipate the most basic things someone might ask you. And I also thought that they, even with the thing they seemed prepared for, they gave the Trump campaign fodder, which is this line where she says, "My values have not changed."
Yes.
If that's your answer, great.
Okay.
The Trump campaign's happy to run with that, and I think has already put together an ad using that.
Yeah, that would mean the values of 2020, which is ban fracking and Green New Deal and then Medicare, et cetera. Or Medicare for all, ending private insurance or whatever. And the other thing, of course, was she seems to have a stock answer when it comes to, the last 3.5 years. People are not happy with the economy. I mean, things are getting better, but, when you have inflation and you have all these other issues, how do you answer that question? And her answer, obviously they prepped for this, but it's not a great answer, which is, when we came into office, we inherited an economic disaster, the catastrophe of COVID and the catastrophe of Donald Trump's COVID policies, as if they were like, let's open businesses and schools, which is obviously not where they were. And people were still trying to figure out what was going on. But I don't think that answer works. At least it didn't work for me.
No. I found it all quite unimpressive and missing the joy we've heard so much about. I think she also seems, as is always the case with her, she seems very uncertain. Of herself.
She does.
Which, her imposter syndrome is like the only thing she's actually earned. So
there's one good thing that happened.
You earned it.
Yes. The one good thing she can talk about is lowering the price of insulin.
Many times. Yeah. Many times she talked about that. By the way, can I just note, we talked briefly about post-convention polling. There has been no perceptible bounce. Is that the correct word? Yeah. Bounce for Kamala Harris, which again, I think is due to probably her bounce being baked in, because her bounce happened when she became the nominee.
It was a 2-week thing, or at least several weeks.
Still, I think it's a problem for her that after this many weeks of this kind of glowing coverage.
Glowing.
she has not gained more. We're a deadlocked nation in a lot of ways, so it's going to be very close here. We're going to be fighting on the margins. But the fact that she didn't open a little bit more during this 6-week, more than honeymoon.
Right.
Okay, that's a nicer honeymoon than most people have in their real lives with maybe more action.
Ooh, very Catherine there. Saucy.
I'm just saying, it's been ridiculous.
Yes.
It's been ridiculous. Here's my question. So I noticed Nate Silver talking yesterday about how we've seen her close gaps in various battleground states.
Sure.
And I think she has opened the map for them in a way that was not possible with Biden.
North Carolina.
They're they're down in Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, right? Sunbelt states that were not available to Biden. But in Pennsylvania, the story's different. Yeah. And her path almost has to go through Pennsylvania.
It solves a lot of problems for her if she wins it.
And then who was out in Pennsylvania with her but President Joe Biden this week?
Good old Joe, Scranton Joe.
What do you think of that move?
It's great to remind people that you are connected to this man who is barely, compos mentis and has all that energy that they're bragging about and reminds you of the good times. And, it's great.
Yeah, he's
if you're a Republican.
Right, if you're a Republican. So this is interesting to me because I think one of the best things she's been able to do is try to pull off this magic trick where she just says, like, I don't know that dude. Yeah. He came out on Monday, that old man who came out on the stage Monday. I don't know that guy. Yeah. Life is terrible right now, isn't it, guys? Isn't life terrible? Let me turn the page for you.
Also,
right?
the media pundits' defense of her being vice presidents don't do anything. I mean, historically, they have never had any power, especially Dick Cheney. We never thought he had any power behind the scenes.
Except for, by the way, like cover up the president's mental acuity problem, which she had no good answer for that one either.
Which came up, by the way, Mary Catherine, on the CNN interview. The panelists afterwards, they talked about the cover-up. I think it was Scott Jennings being concerned that she covered up. And another panel said that campaign is forward-looking, not backward.
Yeah, it's just old news. We don't need to deal with that right now. So my thought is, I think one of the most successful things she's done is pull off this magic trick with the help of the press to say, like, no, I'm the change agent. Right. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never met Joe Biden. Yeah. I don't think I've ever been in the same room with him. And then she goes out on stage with him in Pennsylvania. I find this to be a weird move because I think he's very unpopular. I don't think you have to think that. The facts show that he's very unpopular.
Tying yourself to.
Here's what I think's going on. I think they have a man problem in Pennsylvania. And I think they have an old people problem in Pennsylvania specifically.
So this is like two birds with one stone?
Well, so one thing that you could say for Biden and that AOC was smart enough to say when she was objecting to kicking him off the ticket.
Right.
Back before she had her new chip installed and went full Kamala. That's right. She said, and she was right, that in polling, he was holding and in fact having enthusiastic support from older voters. Older voters are reliable voters. Yep. That is a nice thing about them. They vote reliably. You don't have to do a ton of work to get them out. So the question was, if they kick him off the ticket, does that make those older voters less likely to vote for him? Plenty of those older voters who are more Rust Belt type folks who would have more of a connection to a Scranton Joe character are in Pennsylvania. And I wonder if this is a sort of desperate move to say, look, old men of Pennsylvania who used to work in mines and factories, and who have raised your families and are not super happy with the direction of the country. We give you Joe Biden?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I think that's a pretty good bet. It's like the Billy Joel song. They should just play "Living in Allentown." We're living here in Allentown, and that's it.
That'd be better than having him on stage, I think, because the risk is that it just reminds everybody that, of course, they're in the same administration, and I'm not sure those old male voters, and old voters in general, elderly, I shouldn't just say old, in the 65 plus bracket, vibrant, healthy. I'm not sure that you don't lose more of them by tying yourself to him and giving up the change agent thing. How
Yeah.
convincing is this guy?
Yeah.
We could play a little clip of him on the trail. Oh, the energy.
But guess what? Under my administration, it goes straight to the county. One of my best friends, my name's Joe Biden. I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Anyway, so I think she has a
Yeah.
particular Pennsylvania problem. And maybe that will get ironed out soonish. Maybe it will show that she's tied or ahead there as it does in other states. But
Yeah.
lately it has not. So we'll see. Because they're going to tell you all about how she got an uptick with women, which she did. And the gender gap is a huge part of all of this, is that Trump has to drive up numbers with men and she has to drive up numbers
Right.
with women. And there's not a ton of convincing going on other than that, right? I think Trump's insane and bad idea for everyone to pay for IVF
Yes.
is a sop to like, hey, suburban women, I'm not as scary as you think I am.
Right.
Would you like this huge handout on the backs of other people?
Well, just throw it all to see what sticks. That's the thing, And he said, and he did this, I think, right before she went on and to do the interview. They
Yeah.
thought,
So
we're gonna make it about me, but not necessarily in a good way.
The policy, yeah. So I think that's his attempt to sort of
Mm-hmm.
convince,
Try
but
to,
he's not going to do a steady
No.
job of it.
It's also not feasible.
Just as she's not going to do a steady job of convincing white, non-college educated men
Yeah.
or minority non-college educated men with whom she has an issue as well. Because the Democratic Party has told men that they don't much care for them for many years.
With regard to the polling and how close it is, and of course when she's up by 1 or 2, she's leading. If he's up by 1 or 2, it's tied, probably in a margin of
yes,
error.
obviously.
But and I spoke about it earlier on Hugh Hewitt's show about we both speculated on how accurate the polling is if you assume that there might be a percentage of people who don't want to admit that they're not voting for Kamala Harris, right? Because they want to virtue signal. They want to say, hey, I'm doing the right thing according to the culture of the media.
Yeah, this is the shy Trump voter.
Right. That we'll find out, I guess.
Well, he has always underpolled before elections. He is at a higher level than he's been, particularly, I think, in favorability than many times in the 2016 or 2020 election. He's closer by far to Kamala Harris than he was to Joe Biden at this point. But it remains to be seen. I kind of thought that the assassination attempt, remember that? That the assassination attempt.
You might as well be talking about Reagan at this point.
Really, it's gone.
Yeah.
I thought the assassination attempt might consolidate shy Trump voters to be out and out Trump voters, just because it's like this was such a horrible thing that happened and that all Americans should be upset about. But that seems to have faded as the media continues its never-ending campaign to tell all of the Trump voters that they're terrible, terrible troglodytes. So I don't know. We shall see. Meanwhile, can we talk about the anniversary of the withdrawal from Afghanistan? This is a day that is very hard for many veterans, many people who put their lives on the line and lost friends and blood and treasure in country. Those who tried to rescue people out of Afghanistan. I have friends who managed to get some translators out of Afghanistan, no thanks to the federal government, who was not interested in doing any of that. Of course, the anniversary was this week of the Abbey Gate suicide bombing that killed 13 servicemen and women. You'll remember that at the RNC, families of those fallen were at the RNC speaking about their loved ones. The reason they were there is because the Biden-Harris administration is not interested in those families or honoring those losses, right? We've watched, 3 State of the Unions since that event, and not one of them has mentioned those families and those losses. Not one of the president and the vice president haven't invited them to anything. And to hear the Gold Star families tell it, they have not received phone calls from Harris or Biden. Nothing, because it is politically inconvenient for them to acknowledge that this terrible thing happened on their watch.
Not only do they not want to bring it up anywhere they go, Biden and Harris, but Joe Biden actively denied it during the debate by saying that no
Americans died.
Serviceman or woman died on his watch. That's insane. So it's not just saying, oh, I don't want to talk about it. It's like, no, it never happened, as if they're trying to erase their memories. They had the ceremony in Arlington.
So yes, this became a very large controversy. So on the anniversary, which is August 26th, the 3-year anniversary of the loss of these 13 service members, former President Trump and current candidate Trump is asked to come to Arlington Cemetery for a wreath laying with some of these families. He was specifically invited by some of these families. In so doing, now that some of these wires get a little bit crossed here,
sure,
but in so doing, apparently some of those families asked him, and they themselves took video and photos during this event.
Yeah.
At some point, one of those videos went into like a TikTok video or something of the Trump campaign.
Yes.
The families have also said that this is also sort of conflicting. The families have said that they extended an invitation to Biden and Harris, who were in town but did not come by for this honoring of these servicemen and women. John Kirby suggested that there was no invitation. He is spokesman for the Biden-Harris administration, so I'm unsure what happened there. At any rate, Trump goes to lay a wreath. They ignore the day, except for written statements. They do written statements. And then the story becomes Trump has used Arlington Cemetery as a political prop.
Right.
This is disgusting. It probably violates federal law.
Yes.
There is a story of some sort of altercation argument with an Arlington Cemetery representative who said you can't take those videos there. Again, the families had said that they wanted the videos, but there is some sensitivity about who you get in the background of whose gravestone is in the background of something like that. Enter Kamala Harris on Twitter, who releases this. As vice president, I have had the privilege of visiting Arlington National Cemetery several times. It is a solemn place, a place where we come together to honor American heroes who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service of this nation. It is not a place for politics. And yet, as was reported this week, Donald Trump's team chose to film a video there, resulting in an altercation with cemetery staff. Let me be clear. The former president disrespected sacred ground, all for the sake of a political stunt. This is nothing new from Donald Trump. This is a man who has called our fallen service members suckers and losers and disparaged Medal of Honor recipients. A man who, during a previous visit to the cemetery, reportedly said of fallen service members, "I don't get it. What was in it for them?" This is a man who is unable to comprehend anything other than service to himself. She goes on and on.
Yes. This is based on someone's allegations.
A Jeffrey
claims.
Goldberg story in The Atlantic that was not sourced to any named person.
Right, of course. Yeah.
She says, I will always honor the service and sacrifice of all of America's fallen heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of our beloved nation and our cherished freedoms. I mourn them and salute them, and I will never politicize them.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
Let me just say that if I were running for president and I had overseen a withdrawal which was disastrous, during which 13 service members had died.
And $4 billion of military hardware.
And whose families I had never bothered to call.
Right.
And whose commemoration ceremony on the 3rd anniversary I did not attend. I would simply not tweet about that.
Yeah, you kind of set yourself up for it.
Because this is insulting, no matter what you think of Donald Trump, to the families that invited him.
Yeah.
And it is a total gaslighting, ridiculous, fake outrage from a person who is doing the thing that's outrageous. Yeah. Ignoring these families is the disrespectful thing.
Yeah, she had 3 years to do something, say something.
3 years.
So the optics were not great for them. Number one, it's not like Joe Biden was sitting there wishing in the Oval Office, boy, I wish they would let me go there to do this thing because I feel that strongly about it. He was on vacation. He's at Rehoboth Beach, right? He was in the middle of his second week of a vacation. after his vacation. And then Vice President Harris was at the mansion, which is only a few miles
just a
away.
few miles away. Right.
So they could have gone. They chose not to go. Donald Trump went. He was invited.
And by the way, had they gone, had they accepted invitations,
then
which again, some of the families say were extended. I mean, if they had accepted any invitation to talk to these people at any time, but particularly if they had accepted an invitation to come to this event, it wouldn't have been politicized because everyone's there.
Everyone's there. But here's the thing. They could not go, right? Politically, cynically speaking, you cannot remind the American people this awful, awful thing happened on their watch. That's the one thing they don't want to remind people of. That's why they never speak about it. And if they went there, who knows? But somebody might say this is your fault or get blamed or make a big scene. It would be very bad for him and be awkward. So let's forget it. And they cannot go, even though they should.
Right.
But that's why there's no way.
But here's the thing. That would be the dignified way to take the L.
Yeah.
Right?
No, they can't take the L.
Right. But here's the thing. She takes the L anyway because she gets away with basically everything. Yeah. Republicans would have had a harder time pinning the Afghanistan withdrawal and the deaths of these 13 servicemen and women on Harris. And she was like, I'm here to crap all over Donald Trump visiting Arlington Cemetery so that you can now associate this with me. And you know what? That didn't go over so well with the Gold Star families involved. Let me play a few minutes of them responding, because it was very clear that once she put out this statement, they decided en masse, we will not be being quiet about this anymore after 3 years.
Vice President Harris.
Vice President Harris.
Vice President Harris. My name is Steve Nakui. I'm the father of Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakui.
My name is Jim McCollum. I am the Gold Star father of the United States Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley McCollum.
This is Mark Schmitz, Gold Star father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz.
My name is Darren Hoover, and I'm the Gold Star father of United States Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover.
My daughter-in-law, Sergeant Nicole Leanne G., was killed in the Afghanistan exit at Abbey Gate.
Our kids were murdered because of your administration.
You were not at Dover for the dignified transfer. And no time have you reached out to me to offer your condolences, to offer thank you for Kareem's sacrifice and service.
You have 13 families who have been waiting over 3 years to so much as get a phone call, to so much as hear our kids' names said aloud.
You failed for 3 years and 8 months to acknowledge our kids.
Where were you and Joe Biden on August 26, 2024? Nowhere near Arlington Cemetery. You couldn't be bothered to be with us or even say our kids' names, just as you had done for the last 3 years.
Vice President Harris, I ask you, why won't you return a call and explain to us how you call my daughter-in-law's death a success? President Trump has called. President Trump shows up. But President Trump takes the time to hear our loved ones' stories.
We invited him to be there.
These are the only memories we get to make with our son, and it is you who is playing politics and trying to detract from our memories made that day.
President Trump has been there for us. He's been a rock for us. He showed compassion for us, and he showed he truly cares for the families that truly do know what the ultimate sacrifice really is.
I believe there are about 9 different family members who made videos, and they did it in a coordinated fashion. These folks have been so patient for 3 years, right? And now I think the press will either completely ignore them or happily smear some of them. In fact, the New York Times immediately was like, Trump uses Gold Star families to attack Harris. Harris attacked them. Harris attacked Trump and, by extension, the families who invited him. And is trying to make, like, the idea of, by the way, Democratic political campaigns have B-roll of Arlington in them frequently. This is not not a thing that's not done. And I agree that you should be sensitive about that. But the idea that he's the offender here
right,
and not them for doing this for 3 years is absolutely crazy to me. And I think that if you have a compliant press, you fall into traps like this because you think, well, I'm obviously the good guy here. I'm obviously the good. He's Trump, so I'm the good guy.
I mean, the best thing they can do, the Democrats, or if you're in the Harris campaign, is to just move on from this and not keep on dwelling on it, right? The Streisand effect, as we were talking about. On the other hand, knowing them, they'll probably work with somebody in the media to find out they got dirt on somebody, on one of the families. Oh, they accepted this or they did that. Who knows what it is? And go after the Gold Star family. So
I mean, I would just say you rarely see such a unified
right,
and devastating moment.
Right.
It should be huge news. It should be huge news. It does not seem as if it's going to be made into huge news. Because the press does not want her held to account for this.
Again, they want
But
to move
she
on.
brought this on herself by attacking. She went on the attack on this incredibly vulnerable issue for her. And I just think whatever you think of Donald Trump and the reports about him, and certainly we have it on record, what he thought of John McCain and him being a POW, right? His behavior is often very bad. And his behavior is often self-interested and has a political bent to it. And maybe that's some of this. But these people have a right to get their children's names out there, to talk about their losses, to have them honored. And when a former president is part of doing that for you, guess what? Your kid's name gets a lot more recognition.
Think about Ronald Reagan, after the terrible Marine barracks attack in Beirut, right? And having to meet with all those families. And that happened on his watch, but there he was. And it was hard for everybody, obviously, involved.
Well, and Trump actually had...
There's no way Biden's going to do something like that.
I don't know if you remember this. Trump actually had a Gold Star widow, a Navy SEALs widow, at his 2017 State of the Union address. And it was the most powerful moment at that State of the Union. And he was criticized for using her as a prop, even though arguably the Navy SEAL's death was on his watch and something that could be a political liability for him.
Exactly.
And that's another thing. Gold Star families have agency. Cindy Sheehan, who was against the Iraq War, got nonstop friendly coverage because she was on the correct side, according to the press, of that conflict. And her pain is the same as these folks, right? But they will not get the same benefit of the doubt or coverage.
She got positive press coverage until she ran out of her usefulness.
I want to, and then once Obama was in charge, that changed. I want to play a little bit quickly from Tulsi Gabbard's interview with Dana Bash on CNN about this controversy.
And I was with them at Section 60, and what I saw was a very grave and somber remembrance and honoring of those lives that were lost. And I saw President Trump spending time at the invitation of these Gold Star families with them. He was there for a few hours. I did not see or hear about any kind of altercation until something came out in the news later on. The families were there grieving alongside President Trump, and it was a very special moment to really remember their names, remember their memories, and understand the true cost of war and the consequences of the decisions that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden made in the execution of that withdrawal.
Yeah, and it is very clear that the former president was invited in his personal capacity, as you said, by a family of one of the service members who was killed about 2 years ago during the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
It was 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
3 years ago to the day.
This is an illustration of how deeply ingrained the conformity culture is in media that Dana Bash does not know. While going hard on this controversy. She does not even know when Abbygate happened. She doesn't know within a year when the Afghanistan withdrawal happened. But she's going to go hard on Trump and these families and Tulsi Gabbard for being there on the third anniversary. That is astounding to me.
And
2 years ago.
And then she goes on again about making this about Trump as opposed to what happened. Then she says, well, I mean, because they had video there, they used the video, that the President Trump could have committed a federal crime. Right. She actually uses the term, he could have committed a federal crime, which means, oh my goodness, this horrible thing that he did.
About 2 years ago.
And let's not,
The press is full of people who will tell you they are the smartest people on the planet and that you're a big dum-dum who doesn't know anything. Right. When it turns out like just basic stuff. And thank you, Gabbard, for being very quick and very serious about
she was very serious.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
August 26th.
And she was like, thank you for correcting me.
2021.
She said, and on top of that, let's not also forget Kristen Welker on NBC.
Oh, yes.
Telling Tom Cotton that Kamala Harris was at the dignified transfer.
Which she was not. Yeah. All the facts.
They're trying so hard.
Many facts.
They are trying so hard, Mary Catherine.
So many facts at their disposal. You know what? We have had such a heavy day. You have to end with something silly. Can you tell me a silly story before we end?
I will tell you a silly story, Mary Catherine, although it's serious for those of us who take it seriously, which is the hot dog competition. Unsanctioned, if you will, because this was not the Nathan's Coney Island competition.
Okay.
This was the Netflix hot dog competitive eating competition between Joey Chestnut, who got banned because he took on as a sponsor a vegan hot dog. Okay, I understand the
You know
concern.
what? I can't really blame Nathan's on that one.
And who did he? But then they decided that he would take on his former arch nemesis,
We
Takeru
love that.
Kobayashi, who's had a documentary about himself. And so it was a big event over the weekend. And there were some changes to the rules. You're not allowed to dunk the hot dog in the water.
Oh, wow.
No. So you got to eat and then drink separately.
Okay.
Which they managed to do that. And after...
Hold on.
Yes.
The Netflix show is called Unfinished Beef.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah, it's a great time. It's unfinished beef. Right.
That's really good. Okay.
And at the end, when time was up, which is 10 minutes or something like that, Joey Chestnut won. He prevailed with 83 hot dogs consumed versus, yes, Jennifer, 83 in 10 minutes versus Kobayashi's measly 66.
Well, so I think Kobayashi, if I'm not mistaken, the dunking was a huge part of Kobayashi's technique. So I don't know who pulled some strings for Joey Chestnut
There's something
over
not
here.
kosher about that.
Perhaps.
Yes. Now, it's amazing, though, because I wonder what their digestive systems are like, because they're not large people. So they have such control over their body that they can expand and contract at will. If time was not a factor, I'd be interested in partaking.
I would not be interested.
You don't think so?
No,
by
maybe,
the way,
perhaps in my younger days, but not now. Do you know that one competitive eater, speaking of tiny competitive eaters, Sonia Thomas, known as the Black Widow?
Oh, the Black Widow, from around here.
She lives around here.
Yes, she does. Another one, tiny, and she was like a wing champion.
Yes, South Korean-born American competitive eater from Alexandria, Virginia, and she is a teeny little lady.
God bless. By the way, just like if you're like any other athlete, you have your sponsors. I noticed on Joey Chestnut's shoulder patch was dude wipes. Just leave it at that.
Well, that is very on brand. I mean, glad to bring it home to America, right?
Yeah.
Right?
It was a perfect way to end the brat summer, shall we say? I have a self-correction, but I'm going to save it for our next episode.
Okay, because we're running over.
We are running over.
We had to give you guys something light,
we did.
so to speak, to end this. Congratulations to Joey Chestnut.
Yeah, congratulations.
And also, I think this was a marketing misfire because I should have been told about this contest, and I did not know about it before.
Yeah. No, I'd like to have been there to cover it. Okay. That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I'm at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time. On Instagram, you can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube and Instagram. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.